Alright, in this video we're going to look at different methods of depreciation. We're going to start with straight line because it's the easiest. And for this example, we're going to assume that we're looking at an asset that has a cost of $1,200, an estimated useful life of 4 years. Notice that this is based on an estimate, and an estimated salvage value of $200. So a lot of depreciation is really based on the company's estimates. Now, to calculate straight line depreciation, we take the cost of the asset, we subtract the salvage value, that gives us the depreciable basis, and then we divide it by the estimated useful life to come up with a dollar amount for depreciation each year. So for this example, we would say $1,200 of cost minus $200 of salvage value, that's $1,000, divided by 4 years of useful life gives us $250 of depreciation per year. So what is the adjusting entry? We learned that earlier this semester. The adjusting entry for depreciation is always the same: debit depreciation expense and credit accumulated depreciation. And it is helpful to indicate which category of asset the accumulated depreciation is connected to. So that's why you see the dash equipment, so that on the balance sheet we'll know there's the equipment account for $1,200 and its related accumulated depreciation account. And like all adjusting entries, the adjustment affects one income statement account and one balance sheet account where accumulated depreciation is a contra asset. Now, most companies use straight line because it's the simplest. Once you make the computation, you literally can set the computer system up to record the depreciation for the same amount throughout the asset's useful life. It can be set up as a recurring entry. But there are other methods. Units of production, declining balance, and then there are tax methods that MACRS, accountants refer to that as MACRS, which stands for Modified Accelerated Cost Recovery System, and that's tax depreciation. So we're going to look at the first two briefly, and I'm going to leave the tax methods for a more advanced level course. Now, units of production. The big difference here is that the asset life is going to be measured by output, not by time. So when we were looking at straight line, we said the asset had a useful life of 4 years. In this method, we're going to utilize an approach that is focused on the productivity of the asset. So cost minus salvage value, right? We have the same numerator, but we're going to calculate the depreciation per unit, where we're looking at the total units of production. And so then the annual expense is going to be that depreciation per unit times the actual annual production. So let's put some numbers to this so we can see how that works. So let's say we bought a copier and it had a cost of $1,000 and it has 0 salvage value. For a photocopier, a lot of times when you buy one of the things you're looking at is how productive will it be? How many pages will it produce? And let's say we've estimated, or the manufacturer even may have suggested, that you could expect this copier to be able to produce 100,000 photocopies over its life. So instead of depreciating over a time period, we're actually going to depreciate based on the number of pages. So to compute the depreciation per page, we take the cost minus the salvage. That's the $1,000 minus the 0 salvage value. That's the depreciable basis of $1,000. And then we divide it by 100,000 pages. And we can say then that we would be depreciating the cost, or writing off the asset's cost, at a rate of a penny per page. Then at the end of the year, we look at how many pages of copies did we actually make with this unit. And if we produced 31,250 pages for the year, you would take that amount, multiply it by a penny per page, and we would say depreciation expense per year is $312.50. And believe it or not, most photocopiers can actually tell you the number of pages they've generated for a time period. So this is a very feasible and sort of a logical way to measure depreciation for things like automobiles and photocopiers. It's not used as much as straight line, but it's a very defensible, theoretically defensible method. The last method we're going to look at is the declining balance method. This would be categorized as an accelerated depreciation method because we're trying to speed up the amount of depreciation expense that we're recording to save on our tax bill. And so declining balance can actually be 150% declining, or double declining, or 300% declining. Double declining is the most common, so that's the one we're going to look at. And what are we doubling? All right, so the doubling is a reference to a double of the straight line rate of depreciation. So for example, let's say we're looking at an asset and the useful life is 5 years. Then the straight line rate is really 1/5, right? Because we would have 5 years in the denominator when we would be calculating straight line depreciation. So we would be taking 1/5 each year in terms of depreciation. And so if we're going to double that, then we would take 2 times the 1/5, or we'd depreciate at a fraction of 2/5 per year. So let's take a look at how this would work. Up front, it's important to make one point very, very clear. The focus is on the book value, and salvage value is essentially ignored in the computations until the end of the asset's life. So where all the other methods take cost minus salvage and then do the computation, the declining balance methods do not. So we're going to ignore salvage value. So let's say we've got the asset cost, again, of $1,200, and there is a salvage value of $200, and the life is 10 years. Well, the straight line rate would be 1/10, right? Dividing by 10, or 1/10. And if we're going to double that, we're going to take 2/10, or 20%, as the double declining balance depreciation rate. In year 1, instead of taking cost minus salvage, all we're looking at is cost. And so it's the $1,200 cost times the double rate, the 20% rate, and the year 1 depreciation amount would be $240. In year 2, we would be looking at this declining balance concept, the cost minus the accumulated depreciation. So the $1,200 of cost minus, not the salvage, but the accumulated depreciation from year 1, which is $240. We take that net amount, multiply it by 20%, and the depreciation goes down to $192. So this is an accelerated method. It's taking larger amounts of depreciation, and then that amount falls. And then the process continues each year until near the end of the asset's useful life. We might have to adjust the depreciation so that we force a book value to remain that is equal to the salvage value, where book value is equal to cost minus accumulated depreciation. That should give you enough of a framework so that we can start to work through some problems together in class.